I was in a hotel room in Sydney on one occasion. The wall was thin enough for me to hear what was happening next door at 1 o'clock in the morning. There was this poor lady sobbing her heart out because her husband was with another woman at the time, and she's on the telephone trying to talk to him. Oh man, that's the sobbing. And I thought what Gary put on the screen then, no tears. You know, this weekend right here in Brisbane there will be many tears for such events. Kids belted up by a drunken mother or father. That's the reality of life. And thank God a last empire is not going to have any of that in it. We've stood over too many open graves and said goodbye to too many loved ones, have we not? And made our pillows soggy with our tears. That's all going to go in the last empire. So thanks, Gary. That was so important for us to hear the hope. All right. Well, when you leave this evening, make sure you get a copy of each of the presentations. There's actually 5 of them, 2 for number 1 and 1 for each of the other, okay? And if you haven't yet filled out the card, make sure you do that and pass it in as you leave. All right, let's go to our last presentation in our Prophetica. John on the island of Patmos, he was exiled here, courtesy of the Romans, and because he wouldn't cook, they tried to boil him in oil, but that didn't work. And it was on this lonely island that he was given the amazing book of Revelation, which we're going to be getting into and understanding in the Countdown series. It was a Roman penal colony, and this is the cave of the apocalypse. Millions of people come here to go to this cave because this is where they say John was given the revelation. Well, we don't really know exactly where he was given it, but that's the traditional site. Somewhere on this lonely island, John was shown amazing things right down to our own time. John, in the middle of the book, sees Earth's final events on planet Earth. And you will notice his middle section deals with things that are happening today. He sees these 3 beasts, a dragon, a sea beast, and a land beast. These 3 are what we could call a global world order. In actual fact, I want you to notice very carefully what he said he saw. I saw a beast rising up out of the sea. The dragon gave him his power, his throne, and great authority. Then I saw another beast coming up out of the earth. He says, and he exercises all the authority of the first beast. That's the sea beast. And all the world marveled and followed the beast. All the world, he says. So this is a global issue. Tragically, many people don't even realize what's actually starting to take place. But it's here in the book of Revelation. Now, how do they control the whole world? We obviously can't get into all these things tonight. But what we can see is what is predicted as how things are going to be controlled. We can see things taking shape today. And that's my point tonight. So we can see, wow, how did John know this 2,000 years ago? Number 1, economic and financial control will be used to get everybody to toe the line. John said, he, talking of the land beast, he causes all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and slave, to receive a mark on their right hand or on their foreheads, and that no one may buy or sell except one who has the mark or the name of the beast or the number of his name. Now, so that's the first one, economic control. Number 2, physical coercion. John continues, he, that's the land beast, was granted power to cause that as many as would not worship the image of the beast, because he sets up an image, we'll talk about that in Countdown, as many as would not worship the image of the beast would be killed. So if he sets up an image, that's a replica of the sea beast, so if you worship the image, you really worship the sea beast, in other words, and if you don't do it, you'll be killed. So very clearly, physical coercion. What's the purpose for global control? What's the end game? What do they want out of control? Here it is. This will surprise us, and maybe some of us will be tempted to think, nah, John had too many mushrooms the night before, or too much to eat before he went to bed, and he had a nightmare. No, this is what John says. Global worship or allegiance in the spiritual sphere of life. Notice what he says. And all the world marveled, and they followed the beast. So they worshipped the dragon, who gave authority to the beast, and they worshipped the beast. He, talking of the land beast now, he causes the earth and those who dwell in it to worship the first beast. Now, 3 times, John has said in this short passage, worship, worship, worship. That's a religious word, right? The idea of worship. Now, what's going to be the result of global control? What will be the outcome of all of this? What's the shakedown, or one of the things that's going to happen? Notice what he says. Global economic meltdown. That's what he predicts. The merchants of the earth will weep and they will mourn, for no one buys their merchandise anymore, the financiers of the world. For in 1 hour such great riches come to nothing. In other words, the greatest economic global meltdown we have is coming, says John. Now, is this really coming? Or as we said, did John just have too much to eat the night before? What's going on here? What evidence do we have that some of the things he's predicted are actually starting to be implemented? Well, let's have a look. I have a fascinating book in my library at home called The Lexus and the Olive Tree. Lexus being a nice flash car that not too many of us own. Most of us, probably like me, you've got a Toyota or something, a Mazda. But this is for the rich, and the olive tree, of course, this is the main way people earn their income in Middle Eastern countries. We could say the rich and the poor, if you like. And now Thomas Friedman, he's been a journalist for the New York Times. He's quite a commentator on things. But he wrote this book some years ago now on globalization, meaning the world has become or is becoming a global economic village. And that's what he's talking about. He says there are 3 factors that have driven us to this point, or are driving us more and more. Number 1, he says, the democratization of technology. That's a fancy phrase. What does he mean? He means it is very easy for anybody on the planet today to get modern technology where they can connect with the world. And that's true, isn't it? You know, thanks to smartphones, computers and the works, we can connect. You can be 80-year-old grandma here in Reedy Creek, and you can set up business and sell, if you want to, icy poles to the people living up in Greenland, right? No problem at all. We can get our hands on technology. Now, the next one is, he says, the democratization of finances. It's easy to get money to buy the stuff. You say, I don't know about that. Well, let me tell you, easy. Go get a credit card. They'll be happy to give you 1 or 2 or 3 of them, right? Just be careful how you use it. But it's a small loan. You don't think it's easy for people to be able to access this stuff today? We'll come to the last one in a moment. I'm on a sort of like a back of a bus truck thing in the middle of Bougainville Island on one occasion. We've gone about 2 hours on a 5-hour journey, and they decided to have a toilet stop so everyone could go to the bush, okay? As they jumped off to go into the bush, pretty quick they were all on their iPhones out there in the middle of Papua New Guinea. Don't have a lot of money, but they can get an iPhone. No matter where you are on the planet, I don't care who you are, where you are, you can access stuff. That's what he's talking about. The democratization of information. What does he mean? He means, listen, it's very difficult today to control information. No bamboo curtains, iron curtains. Oh, yeah, they can try to keep you out, but people find ways to get out there into cyberland space, right? Thanks to satellites and so on. So information flows so readily on the planet. I'm sure you believe that by now. I mean, if you want to go home tonight, you can watch your favourite soccer team in Outer Mongolia live, right? That's what we mean. It's easy. Technology gives information so readily today. Now, the point that we want to make or find from him is this: serious implications for where we are and where we are heading even more. And that is, number 1, the opportunity for global economic control. Because now we're so all interconnected, it makes it much easier for someone or some group to actually control things economically around the planet. And as we read just a moment ago, that's exactly what John says is going to happen, remember? Can't buy, can't sell one day unless you toe the line. He, the land beast, causes all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and slave, to receive a mark on their right hand or on their foreheads, and that no one may buy or sell except one who has the mark or the name of the beast or the number of his name. Now think of this statement. In this short passage, cryptic passage by John, there are three characteristics that stand out. Number one, no one. No one on the planet, he says, that's what? Global, okay? What does he say next? May buy or sell. That's economics in anybody's language, if you can be shut down in that space. And the last one, except. That means control. Unless you do, then you can't. So that's what we're talking about. Global economic control is mentioned right there in this simple verse from John living 2,000 years ago. Now let's talk about this. So what do you need to have everybody controlled economically? Well, you need two things. You need a controllable currency system and you need a controllable global financial system. And we are moving very rapidly into both of those spaces. First of all, global financial system. Anybody got many dollars on them tonight in their wallet or their paying? Yes, some have, but not too many of us. I guarantee almost none of us are carrying cash. If you are, it's not too much. We're almost there today. Look at the headlines. Sydney Morning Herald, the business appeal of tap and go and the end of cash. The ABC, COVID-19 is speeding up Australia's shift towards a cashless future. Why? Because no one wants to touch the money, you might get the bug. So this is helping us get there quicker, says ABC back then. Channel 9 News back in 2022, cashless society looms, Australians tipped to move away from cash by 2025. I think that's the year we're living in. We'll see if we get there yet. Channel 9 News, strongest sign yet, Australia heading toward a totally cashless society. You see, once upon a time, you could not control everybody by cash, right? You can hide it under your bed. Someone will be willing to take your cash for something. But when you do away with cash, that's a different story. A totally different story, and that's what we're highlighting this here. Armour guard, guys who go around with their vans to pick up the cash from the banks and so on. A money transporter armour guard is in peril. Could cash be the dead end sooner than we think? And then this one here, ATMs are slowly disappearing. That's correct, isn't it? Have you noticed? A cashless society looming in our world. In other words, with that, with a cashless society, there's the opportunity for control here. Because now you just can't swap your dollars and for some of their goods. No, we've done away with it. Now let's talk about this other aspect, a controllable currency system. This is where the world is moving rapidly today. I want to talk more about digital currency here. Notice some of the headlines. This is Forbes magazine. Digital dollar and the digital wallet bill surfaces in the US Senate. That's back a few years now. 2020. The US dollar could be dethroned internationally by digital currency. Then we have the Sydney Morning Herald, the future of money, the Reserve Bank of Australia to trial a digital currency. Back then they're talking about that. Then SWIFT, if you want to transfer money internationally, SWIFT is your helper, is the way you go. SWIFT planning a launch of new central bank digital currency platform. The world is definitely heading in this space. Now watch what we see here from Reuters published a study showing 130 countries exploring central bank digital currencies. Here's the map. You'll notice here what they've depicted here is the purple one here. This is proof of the concept. So right across Russia and places, they've got proof of it already. And then we've got the yellow, the orange bit here. This is where people are piloting it. Then when we come here, these are all the proof of the concepts. All of North America, lots of in Brazil, Australia and so on. The world is fast moving to that. Now what does that mean? It simply means with a central bank digital currencies, we call them CBDCs, these are state issued and backed, which what it means is it gives central control. In other words, these sort of things are being set up around the world today. Not that I don't think at all that they're thinking of the Bible, but the Bible's predicting these sort of things will be in place toward the end of time so people can use them in the end of time. So the opportunity for global economic control, that's what this guy feared many years ago, back in the 90s now. This is going to be possible when we get to this sort of a situation for global economic control. And of course, John talks about that. We just read about the mark of the beast. You won't be able to buy or sell unless you take whatever that is, and we'll understand that in the programs on Countdown, Back to the Future. The second thing, he says, the possibility of economic collapse. One nation may pull everyone else down with it. Ever heard of the GFC? Well, of course you have, unless you weren't born by 2008. What was that all about? Remember, America, the United States, caught an economic virus. They sneezed and the world got it. It started off with subprime mortgage crisis in the United States. We here in Australia, I think not Philip Rudd, what's his name? Mr. Kevin Rudd. He was the Prime Minister at the time. Doesn't matter who it was, they would have done the same thing. Packages, giving you cash, I think it was $1,000, go spend. They wanted the whole country to spend to keep things afloat. Remember that? We've lived through something like that in recent times where we can have a global financial meltdown. Now, it's not what John's talking about, but it's coming, and we can see such things can easily happen. Global economic collapse is what John predicted toward the end of time. Now, what about physical coercion? Is that really possible that this could be done? Well, of course, we've seen it in our own, well, maybe not my lifetime, just before my lifetime. Still young. My wife will tell you the opposite. Anyway, Nazism and communism, wasn't that about control? Big time. I've had I'm going to say the privilege, I don't think it's a privilege, but to go to places like Auschwitz and some of these death camps in Poland and so on. The control that was exercised over people back then. Of course we've seen it. We've even seen it in recent times. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not against what the government did to try to keep us from the bug. But what I am saying is that this was global coercion. People lost their jobs because they wouldn't take the vaccination, for example. Doctors, even policemen I've met. So these things can happen. As I said, I'm not against the government for trying to help us, not at all. But I am saying there was global coercion right around the planet to take the vaccine and so on to keep COVID-19 away. We know these things can happen. What about this one now? Well, we hope it is. Now, is it realistic that Earth's final events will impact the spiritual sphere of life? Is that really possible? Or is that just John because he was a religious guy or something? No. Let's have a look what we know. I have in my library at home, I used to, my wife decided we should shorten them down because I haven't been reading them, so I kept the most important one. 21 volumes in Sir Arnold J. Toynbee's study of history. Not 21 volumes, he's looking at 21 world civilizations. A study of history. It's fascinating. This guy is a University of London and Oxford trained historian, very reputable historian, now passed away, of course. But this is what he had to say as he looked out over these 21 civilizations that he examined and so on. Notice what he says. The fundamental conflict is not political, but religious. The line cuts across the inward spiritual world within every living soul today, whatever label of political citizenship may have been stamped on its body by the accident of birth. Interesting statement. Have a think about it. The recent international global conflicts, some of the big ones. What about Northern Ireland? What was that about? Well, it was about Catholic and against Protestant. We go to Bosnia, Serbia and Croatia. This involved Muslims, Orthodox Christians and Catholics. Then we have terrorism. Now, most often it's been religious extremist Muslims, but they're not the only ones. There's been extremist Christians. There's been extremist Hindus who've done terrorism. But it's usually a religious base in most cases. Then Kashmir up there in the Himalayan mountains. It's about Muslims versus Hindus up there. We come to the Israel and the Middle East, which is quite in the news. What's that really all about? Underneath, it's got very strong religious undertones. Strongly Orthodox Jews, evangelical Christians, especially in North America and the United States. Israel is God's people, they say, so the government of America must support Israel militarily. And of course, Muslims. I was fascinated to watch a program on national television a few years ago, What the World Thinks of America. And on that program, interviewed was the former Premier of New South Wales, Bob Carr. Some of you may remember Bob Carr, a very well-read person, no question. And he's asked, why is it that the United States in their foreign policy supports Israel and not the Palestinian Arabs? He said, that's easy. That's a no-brainer. Number one, there's a very strong Jewish lobby, of course, in America. 2 million Jews living in New York alone, for starters. But Protestant evangelical Christians in America. That's because they say, hey, this is what we need to do. We need to support Israel. They're God's people, so let's get behind it militarily. You will notice, actually, the current ambassador to Israel is a Baptist pastor who strongly believes Israel must be supported by America. So I'm just saying what John said, religious things, and we can see that even in our world today. Now think of what's going on in the United States right now. It's amazing. Here's a country, let me just share with you the Bill of Rights, what they say. Congress, we could put their parliament, shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof. In other words, if you want to be a Baptist, that's okay by us. You want to be a Muslim, want to be a Catholic, whatever it is, your choice. And the government's not going to get involved. But that's changing very rapidly today in that country. I guess this image here, you've seen. Christian nationalism is a massive force in the United States today for that country. Now, what's significant about this picture when they were invading the capital is who was waving Bibles around for God and country. They just about killed a few guys outside, the security guards. But this is what John is saying. In the end times, it's not so much political, it's religious that's underneath many of the conflicts on planet Earth today. So this is not something that John sort of had a bad dream about. He was seeing things as they will be. A global world order, a dragon, a sea beast, and a land beast. These are going to be very important in the end time. And we'll be looking at who these characters are and the lead up to understand what's going on in our world right now very clearly. Now, I want to finish on this. Why these predictions? Is it just going to given to us by John so we say, oh, this is going to happen, that's going to happen, that's going to happen? No. Much bigger things, much bigger reasons. First of all, what Gary talked about is hope. Most predictions that people make on the planet today, especially in 2000 and 2012, are about gloom and doom, right? A big tsunami is going to wash over the Himalayas and do us all in. There was a film on that, you may have seen it. Gloom and doom, but this is not what is in the mind of the Bible prophets. That's not their aim. You want to notice what Jeremiah, who's making predictions here, he's speaking for God on behalf of God. He says, "For I know the plans I have for you," God speaking, declares the Lord. Plans to prosper you, not to harm you. Plans to give you hope and a future. I like that. Plans to give us hope and a future. And that's what Gary was talking about in our last presentation. So that's one of the goals, to give us hope in the midst of a time of uncertainty, which is really where our world is at today. And then lastly, Jesus summed it up himself, because he made many predictions, and he was making a prediction, and this is what he said. "Now I've told you before it comes," so before it happens, I'm telling you before it happens, "so that when it does come to pass, you may what? You may believe." Now what's amazing is when you go to the book of Isaiah, Isaiah predicts the arrival of King Cyrus 150 years before he even came. He mentions him. He says, he mentions him by name 3 times, and we know the book of Isaiah dates back to about 700 BC. Cyrus is not coming to 539 BC. That's 150 years after thereabouts. He says he's going to get Jerusalem be restored, the people go home, going to build the temple. And that's exactly what happened. It's all predicted in Isaiah. Now, why does Isaiah do these things? He says, listen, God says, I tell you before things happen, I tell you the end from the beginning, so that when it happens, you can believe in me. You can know that I am really God. Prophecy is sort of like God's signature. His signature is stamped all over it. Why? So we can believe. Why does he want us to believe? He says, so that you can look unto me, all you ends of the earth, and be saved. In other words, be in my last empire. That's what he's saying. I'm telling you things before they happen, so you'll have confidence in me that I can get you through what's coming, and you can be part of my last empire. So it's all about hope and about helping us to have a certain future, even though we live in uncertain times. So make sure you join us. By the way, as we close, I'm going to make a prediction. I hope you're listening. My prediction. We're down in the feet of iron and clay, as Gary said. Weak and divided. Soon going to pass away. When you go to bed tonight, before you get into bed, you're going to take your shoes off your feet. That's my prediction. I reckon that's a sure bet, right? But seriously, I hope you look at your feet tonight, right, when you do that. And you look at your feet and say, well, Gary said we're down in the toenails. That's where we are. There's not much under the soles of your feet, is there? But that's where we are. And remember, there is hope. Thank God for these predictions, and we're so glad you joined us tonight. I want to pause and close with a word of thanks to God for giving us these things so we can know where we are in time and we can have a hope for the future. Let's just bow together. Father, we want to thank you so much for this amazing book. It not only gives us hope, it not only helps us believe, but it gives us meaning and purpose and a peace in life. Thank you so much for giving us these things. We pray that you'll keep us as we go to our homes, keep us safe, bring us back here again next Friday evening. We ask in Jesus' name, amen. Look forward to seeing you on Friday evening. Invite a friend to come with you. They'll be so glad. We're going to take an incredible journey beginning next Friday evening.